little bit fair? Where do you stand?
This is where I feel like we've swung too far in like the modern be fair to everyone type of sports analysis. Like when I was a kid, I remember watching like a local Philly sports show, and they took a pumpkin, and like Michael Jordan hadn't been Michael Jordan yet. And they took a bat and smashed this pumpkin and was like, Michael Jordan hasn't done anything. He's selfish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, that was crazy. But also now we're like, you can't, like this past week, you can't criticize Justin Herbert or Sam Darnold or Jordan Love. It's their offensive line. It's like, all right, that you can tell me a guy had a great regular season. You can show me the film from week 12. When the stakes are at their highest, how do they perform? And I agree that it hasn't been all on Lamar Jackson. Last year, Zay Flowers fumbles. Like, we should point that stuff out. But also, when a quarterback doesn't play well in a big spot and they're in a certain year and it's not their first or second year in the NFL, I think it is fair to criticize them. So, if these guys go up and down the field and they both play awesome and one of them loses, then no, I'm not going to be like, that guy can't win. But if one of them comes out and lays an egg and turns the ball over more than they do in the regular season, and their team loses, then we're allowed to. It's okay. We don't have to be like overly fair to some of these guys.
I agree. I thought Justin Herbert was reprehensible last week.
Well, and it was fair
I don't feel like I
so.
criticized him enough.
He sucked, and Jordan Love sucked, and Sam Darnold sucked. They all sucked. And looked at the quarterbacks they won. C.J. Stroud was excellent. Jaden Daniels was
for
excellent.
An hour and a half.
Yeah, well, enough to win the football game. Matthew Stafford was excellent.
All right, $1 million picks round 2. I'm going to throw out some possible bets. Ravens -1.5 we talked about. Shield sounds like you just like the dog. You don't feel like you're just afraid of the game, it seems like.
I took the Bills in my official picks, but it was a coin flip. So, don't let my opinion there change what you guys
I'm
think.
sticking with my Malcolm Gladwell blink test on that one. I felt, before I even knew what the line was, I was like, I just like the Ravens. I think it's a bad matchup for the Bills. If the Bills were playing the Chiefs, I'd feel better about it. I just don't like the Ravens-Bills. So we're probably going to put something on Ravens -1.5. There's a couple parlay teaser options with Chiefs, Eagles, Lions on FanDuel. We do a little 8-point tease, even odds.
Oh.
We could take the Eagles all the way to +1.5. I know it infuriates Raheem but it's actually better odds than the money line parlay to do the 8-point tease and to bring everything down. There's a 7-point tease that's +120, and there's a 6-point tease that's +140. So you would have Baltimore. KC -2.5, the Eagles -2.5. The Eagles even, Lions -2.5. So my instinct is the 8-point tease, and you just have to win the Chiefs. You just have to win the Lions, and then you get the free 1.5 in the Eagles game, and that's even odds. And who's going to fuck us is my instinct. Any alarms for either of you?
I feel like if you lose that, you get to watch a Jaden Daniels classic playoff game. I think other than that, you're safe. So it'll be worth it.
I think that Lions 33.5 is too high, but I don't want to bet it because I could also see a world where they score like 50 points. But I just think it's too high. I think they're trying to sucker you into. It's a lot of points, especially with how we laid out the game. I like the Mahomes 25+ rushing yards bet. That's one 15-yard scramble when he does the thing where he sticks the ball out at the end and then gets a cheap shot and tries to pretend he got knocked unconscious for a second to try to get the flag, and 2 more scrambles. It's like a 4 for 27 shield. Does that make sense to you?
I think so, yeah. And the Texans like to play man coverage. They've got good corners, so there could be some plays in there where he has to hold on to the football, make a play, and he takes off.
So here's my concern, and I'm going to make a recommendation. You can't parlay this, but I prefer attempts to yards when it comes to Mahomes, because kneel downs count as attempts, and kneel downs behind the line of scrimmage detract from your rushing total. Ooh. So if he's in the low 30s and they are running out the football at the end of the game and he kneels down twice, you're all of a sudden in the real danger zone of getting down to like 24 yards, and you lose your bet. The total for rush attempts is 4.5. 3 rushes over the course of the game, and then 2 kneel downs. You collect on your bet. Yeah, that's one that I like.
That's a veteran better right there. I feel like I need to take notes. I'm in awe. Like that is a man who has been burned by a kneel down at some point in the last 10, 20, 30 years.
Shia, which one do you like more, the 4.5 runs or the 25+ yards?
House sold me on the Neil. Come
Well,
in
you can
the
do
first
both.
half.
You can do both.
Yeah.
No, I'm
You
doing
can't
one.
parlay them, but
That's plus 110 on FanDuel. I'm going to mark that one down. So Kelsey and Hopkins to both score touchdowns, plus 931. Just mentioning it. Hopkins to score plus 310. It's been interesting watching them integrate him into their offense. And it seems like they really like him inside the 10, or usually it's Kelsey. And it seems that they like him too. I've always had bad luck with the TD bets, but I'm mentioning that. Stafford and Stroud to both throw a pick. So 2 road QBs against good defenses, both throw a pick, plus 195.
I'm in. I love that one. I think I like the 2-to-1 odds. Stroud is like crazy. It's like minus 160 for him to throw a pick. It's some crazy number. So this is really a Stafford bet. And what's the status of Higbee? I mean, is he?
I think he's supposed to play, but we don't know. Yeah.
Right. That's a big.
She'll seem lukewarm on the double pick bet. Plus 195.
Listen, it's fun. My only concern would be if it's snowy, are they going with a run heavy game plan? And then the Eagles are having one of those drives where it's like the Eagles have possessed the ball for 11 minutes in the set, so he doesn't have the opportunities to throw the pick.
Great point.
But listen, it's a little. You don't have to put.
It's a sprinkle. It's a tiny dabble.
Yeah,
it would be a sprinkle.
I'm not going to say no to any bet like that.
Henry and Barkley both scored touchdowns, plus 134 on Sunday. The little Sunday running back stud touchdown parlay. Henry with Hurts bumps to plus 175. Tush pushy. Something. 5-yard scramble. Henry TD, Hurts TD, plus 175.
Play both.
Josh Allen touchdown is plus 105.
The other
Anything
one
jump out?
Well, I do. The other, when you were talking about the running backs, I like Saquon and Derrick Henry longest rush. Derrick Henry's is like 20.5. Saquon Barkley's is 18.5 yards. I think both of those guys are going to get the ball a lot and break one of them throughout the course of the game. So that's just if you're worried about getting cheated, like you said, on a touchdown where Saquon Barkley runs it to the 1 and then they give it to Jalen Hurts. That's one I would look at. I like the Barkley one specifically, over 18.5 yards as his longest rush. So pairing that with something with Henry could make sense.
What are the odds on that longest rush? Do you remember?
I can't remember. I think it's around minus 110 probably.
House, have you ever experimented with the longest rush? I feel like I'm doing an exotic tequila shot. It's really exciting. Barkley's minus 120 for Barkley, 19 and up. And then for Henry, it's probably, I'm going to guess, the same. That will be 20.5 minus 120. So you try to hit both of them, probably split one, maybe lose a little big or hit both. What do you think, House?
Parlay them. Just put them together. I agree with the idea that both of them are going to get them. That both of those teams are committed in a way that the future of the franchise is based on those two dudes going out and getting rushes. They're going to get all the touches. They're going to have all the opportunity. And if we believe in those offensive lines, then they're going to get there.
Oh, it's a plus 236.
Hey now.
Yes.
Hey now.
So we need Henry for 21 yards, Barkley for 19.
That's happening. Come on.
Put it on
Put
the
it
card.
in before they
Amazing.
change the odds.
Put it on the card. The Shield special. Put it on the card.
Kyle, will you pause for 1 second? So is Saquon 18 and a half, and then Henry 20 and a half, plus 236. That's pretty dicey. I like it. Feel like we're rolling the dice big time. All right, plus 236. All right, come back. All right, so we're going to add that one, plus 236. And then there's some most rushing yards that I thought were interesting. Henry plus 320, Barkley plus 155. The Barkley plus 155 I thought was a little delectable. Gibbs plus 550, but Montgomery's probably going to be back, so I don't know how many carries he's going to get. But the rushing receiving one I really liked was McLaurin plus 850 for most receiving yards this weekend. Some garbage time stuff. One long one. House seems dubious.
Well, I kind of like it. I I don't know how deep they're going to try and go. It would have to be
So
like
what
a pitch
receiver
and
would
catch
beat
kind
that?
of thing. But that's the thing, right? Look at the scripts for the other teams. To me, it might be Xavier Worthy. I honestly think Worthy is going to get
Like
a
a
ton of
60-yarder?
touches.
What do you
might,
have,
like,
Sheila?
Yeah, I have one of my best bets of the weekend is McLaurin over 68.5 receiving yards. I mean,
Oh.
they're gonna have to move the ball. He is by far their go-to target. The Lions don't.
Let's roll, baby. Welcome in. It is a special edition of the Ringer Sunday pregame right here on a Saturday via YouTube as we get you set for the divisional round. We got 4 games over the next 2 days. We got 2 monstrous matchups to break down. Let's welcome in the wise guys as wildcard weekend is come and gone. We now get ourselves ready for the divisional round. We go around the horn. Cousin Sal, a sharp-dressed Raheem Palmer, a very excited Joe House. And, you know, Joe House, I'm going to start with you right out of the gate here because Sal's Cowboys, Raheem's Cowboys are sitting somewhere in Tahiti or Maui. My Dolphins are all on the golf course, but your Washington Commanders are getting ready for a monstrous Saturday night game. They are back in the divisional round for the first time in almost 2 decades. So, Joe House, not to give away anything, but what's the vibe? What's the mood right now for you, buddy?
It is all the way up here. This guy over this shoulder right here, that's my guy. We can't say enough good things about him. It's positive vibes only. I'm at the tippy top of enthusiasm today. We're going to have to be putting the tech crew through all of their paces with my microphone situation and all the rest of it. Because, look, we are playing not just with house money. We're playing with Joe House money. And today we are going to cash, my friends.
I like the sound of that, Joe Haas. Now, Cousin Sal, we have yet another week where it seems like the obvious is staring us right in the face. The obvious being Kansas City, the obvious being Detroit. Maybe you want to throw Philly in there. Maybe you want to throw Ohio State in there. Last week, the obvious tease ended up cashing with these. Do you think it's going to go as advertised? Do you think we're going to be sweating one out at some point this weekend?
I'm so scared. I'm so scared for me. I'm so scared for all the bettors out there who love those money line parlays, like you said. Kansas City just to advance. The Lions, although House won't have to worry about that. Sounds like he's backing his team to advance. Ohio State. There's like 3 UFC guys with a V at the end of their name that you could put on this parlay. Just be careful, everybody. I know there's only 7 games left, but they want to reel you in. Just be careful.
We will be careful. We will tread lightly. Maybe there's an underdog that will find their way onto the card. We shall see. Raheem, you are back in Sin City. You have made your move to Las Vegas. Divisional round in Vegas. Buddy, the only thing that's missing is me right next to you. Let's go here.
I mean, we're going to be together in a couple of weeks for the Super Bowl, but right now we got a divisional round. I'm excited. I know Sal is telling everybody to be careful, but I'm running straight through that red light because I think we're going to make a lot of money this week.
Well, hopefully the divisional round, for at least me is going to treat me as well as Wild Card Weekend did. I was in quite good spirits, even with the Commanders taking care of business. The only game that didn't go the way I wanted it to go, but it went the way Joe House wanted it to go, so I'm A-okay with that. All right, guys, we got the Texans and the Chiefs. We know Kansas City is an 8.5-point favorite. It's time to wisen up on this Saturday. Okay, Sal, we'll see if we're aligned. I'm going with the same philosophy that I had last week with the Wise Wager. I just picked every game ATS. I said I'm not going to get cute. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. That is what I'm going to do over the next 4 games. You are taking a side in both of these games today for a Wise Wager. Texans, Chiefs, line is at 8.5. Who we rolling with?
All right, so we're kind of stuck here, right, guys? Because we saw the Texans, who have been up and down all year, and then they played well. They came out like gangbusters. Not right out the gate against the Chargers, but they ended up winning that game 32-12, and they're up against a superior team who is really good at home, but really bad at covering the spread. They are 0-6-1 against the spread, the Chiefs are. The last 7 times they've been favored by 7 or more. And that is the true reason I'm taking the Texans here. This is the lowest over-under Mahomes has come across in the playoffs. So you figure, I think Raheem would agree with this part at least, low over-under Anything north of 7 is a bonus here. And maybe everyone's right about KC having a little rust. In no way does it translate to them losing this game because they've done this for years and years. They've sat 2 weeks. They've sat week 18. They come out with the Super Bowl trophies. But Andy Reid just 8-9 against the spread after a bye. Maybe a bit of a slow start. Texans grab a lead. Stroud had 280 plus last week. He has the best receiver on the field in Nico Collins. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson make it a little rough for Mahomes before he finds his groove. I am taking the Texans plus 8.5 points here, JJ.
I feel like I get the opportunity to moderate the presidential debate. I'm going to you, Raheem Palmer, because I don't like that bet at all. So make the case on the other side here. We are not rolling as a family. Raheem, you're going the other way.
Sal, do you know what year it is? It's 2025.
Oh, you don't even give me a chance to guess? My God, what kind of game is that? That was
well,
dumb.
Look, the last time the Kansas City Chiefs did not cover a game in the postseason was January 21st, 2023. You're talking about 2 straight years of covers from the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason. You have to approach this Kansas City Chiefs team the same way you would the LeBron James Cleveland Cavaliers because, they fool around, they play possum in the regular season, but in the postseason is where boys become men, and men are taking over. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They are 15-3 outright and 13-5 against the spread in the postseason. Look, last week, the Houston Texans, they had 4 takeaways. Patrick Mahomes is not going to throw 4 interceptions. And if you look at the Houston Texans offense, they still leave a lot to be desired. 21st in success rate, 31st in EPA per play. They're only scoring touchdowns on 19% of their drives. And if you look at the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs, they got their number 1 corner back. There's not a lot of weapons for the Houston Texans. I think the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to win this game just as they did in Week 16 when they won 27-19. Kansas City Chiefs, they win this by 10 or more.
I'm going to break the tie here, Raheem. I'm signing with our guy, Cousin Sal. And Sal, there was not a lot of alignment and agreement with me and you last week on a lot of these games. Well, we're going to find it right out of the gate. I understand your point, Raheem, on the Texans offense. They do leave a lot to be desired. But Kansas City has shown us historically they don't cover as big favorites. I think a lot of the trends pointing to Kansas City being a cover machine are looking at a lot of small spreads here. Small spread against Buffalo in the divisional round. Getting points in Baltimore last year. Small spread in the Super Bowl against San Francisco or Cincinnati and Philadelphia the year before. This game reminds me a lot of the game we saw 2 years ago when they took on the Jacksonville Jaguars. We had Kansas City as a big favorite. Kansas City fooled around with the game, won the game. Mahomes was gimpy. They won. They didn't cover. I think the Houston defense, with what they can do on the edges, with Hunter and with Anderson, is problematic from a Kansas City standpoint. And I don't like the fact that Kansas City has not done a darn thing as far as playing football is concerned, going all the way back to Christmas Day. It's all well and good to try to duplicate it in practice. I know what Reid is like off the bye. I know the Chiefs have been in this position before. I'm not going to be surprised if they're sluggish out of the gate. The total in this game indicates that is a distinct possibility. I don't think Houston's going to win, Raheem. So I think you're right. I think you could tease Kansas City down. I just think it's too many points here. I'm taking the Texans to make this game ugly. And Raheem, you know this all year. When Kansas City is a favorite by 7 or more, they don't cover.
Well, I got to remind you, that Jacksonville Jaguars game that you're referencing on January 21st, 2023, Mahomes got injured in that game, and they were leading by 10. The spread was 9. Jacksonville kicked a meaningless field goal with 25 seconds left in the game, and they covered that game. Well, if Mahomes doesn't get hurt, I think they continue to put the pressure on this Houston Texans team. If you look at their Week 16 and Week 17 games, they won both of those games by double digits. Well, they beat Houston by 8. And if you look at those games, those are the top 2 games by EPA per play for the Chiefs. So I think they're trending in the right direction going into the playoffs, and they're well rested. So give me the Chiefs. I'm sorry. I disagree with you guys. May the best man win.
I mean, Raheem is like
sides against the family. Sal, that's fine. We roll together on the top
half.
That's
fine. I just don't know why he's screaming at us. I guess the smoky casino air hasn't settled into his voice yet. But no, I like it.
I'm full of energy today. I know you guys are just as excited as me for the divisional round.
He's got that BBE, that big bet energy. Let's go.
Oh, I like it. Okay, House, we got 3 picks. I'm sorry we had to take so long to get to you. We'll see. No surprise here. tease city for Jailhouse.
No, I'm not actually teasing. I'm actually going to play a little parlay here because I think there's good arguments on both sides. And both of you guys, all of you guys have made good arguments for the way you're playing this. I'm just playing Kansas City on the money line, and it's minus 500. And I'm not going to walk into the show and tell anybody to take $500 and put it down to try and win 100. Although if you want to do it, I won't argue with you. But look, we're on an 18-game win streak with favorites of a touchdown or more over the past 5 years. All we're asking Kansas City to do is go win the football game. We're going to put that right next door to an under in the first half. Now, JJ, you got at this a little bit. The starters for Kansas City didn't play in Week 18. They had a really nice extended rest here. I think that we're going to have a little bit of slow start on both sides in terms of these offenses. First of all, with Houston, this is going to be the coldest game that Houston's played in the past 16 years. And Joe Mixon has a busted up ankle. He was questionable all week long. Only limited practice, and then I don't think he practiced the last practice. We have the shutdown corner for the Chiefs, Jalen Watson, back to come sit on Nico Collins. But look, Houston's defense is good, and Houston's defense, showed us last week what they're capable of in terms of putting pressure. The left side of that Kansas City line is vulnerable, but this is really about recent history, which shows that these teams coming off a bye that rested their quarterback in Week 18. There's some good numbers here that suggest they come out a little sluggish and they don't come out firing right away. So I don't mind, some field goals and stuff, Kansas City getting out there by a little bit of a lead, but under 20.5 together with the money line, that gives you a plus bet right out of the box, plus 138. Let's build up some bankroll for the rest of the weekend, fellas.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, me too, Raheem. Right there with you. And I'm going to use that little FanDuel profit boost that they give us over the course of the weekend and boost that sucker up that much more. I love that way to play Texans and Chiefs. Now, Kunsel, I know you spend a lot of time with our favorite elf and one of our favorite contributors from a guest perspective, the great Harry Gagnon.
Too much, yeah.
You spend a little too much time with him. He's down in the dumps because his Syracuse basketball team stinks. So he's gone down the rabbit hole of doing a little extra research for something he put together for a Saturday Ringer Sunday pregame. Harry G, what do you have for us?
Hey, gang, it's your pal Harry here, and I got a same-game parlay for you that pays minus 125 on the playoff game between Houston and Kansas City on Saturday. Let's start off with DeAndre Hopkins to have at least 2 receptions, taking on his former team. Also, in 10 games since joining Kansas City, he's had at least 2 receptions, every single one of them. Travis Kelce, at least 4 receptions. Look, he's got 14 straight games in the playoffs with 5 or more receptions, just needs 4. And give me Kansas City money line. That's right, I'm giving Kansas City money line out. Look, they're minus 500, might as well be 5,000. It's going to be the Big Tomatoes, 300th win, and we've got Clay Martin as the head official. In the Mahomes era, when Clay Martin is the head official, the Chiefs are 6-0. Lock it up. I hate it, but that's the way it goes.
Sal, this is like the evolution of Mike McDaniel. I think we're getting the evolution of Harry. Is he spending too much time now in South Beach or with with Tony Montana with those sunglasses? I feel like he should be in Scarface with that attire.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. He all of a sudden joined the FBI with the criminal background that he has, like knocking over candy shops for Don Russ 93 cards. I don't know how the FBI hired him, but I appreciate our producers putting him on at 5x speed so that we can get through that quickly. I hate this stat where people the referee in charge of this game, the Chiefs are 6-0. It's like, that's not an eye-opening statistic. This team wins 93% of their games before they, right, Raheem? They were 15-1 before that last week when they sat everybody. So 100 versus 93 is not a big deal. Everyone, please stop, especially Harry. What a mess.
Hey, look, I don't like this bet at all. How we have a same game parlay where 3 things need to happen, and I'm not even getting plus money or even money.
That's
I got a lay juice. Is he insane?
Yes. You should have started with that. Yes, he is.
Raheem, out of curiosity, do you spend any time in the NFL or in the NBA or college for that matter when you get info on the referees? Do you put any stock in that, or is that something that you don't really take a whole lot into account?
I think when it comes to, basketball or just even NFL, there's some referees who, like in the NFL, there's some referees who don't call a ton of holding penalties. If you go back to that Chiefs versus San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl, you probably could have called a lot more holding penalties. So if you get a ref like that, that's definitely going to impact certain offenses. Or in the NBA, you have some certain refs who call more fouls. So that's definitely things that you want to include in your model.
We love a good model. We might get a model or two from Raheem a little bit later on in the show. But, boys, we transition from our pal, Harry G, to our world-renowned player props, the lock-it-in player prop for the divisional round. And I start with you, Joe House. I was waiting on animation. I forgot there is no animation. I'm the best animation there is in the business. You have kind of been all over the idea that there's a certain Texan running back that might be overvalued in the betting market, and you're playing it accordingly, House.
Yeah, I'm looking at Joe Mixon. I mentioned the fact that he has this ankle injury, but what we've seen, especially with Mixon, is that the opponent and game script completely tell you the story as to whether or not he is going to hit a yardage total. He's cleared 100 yards against 3 teams over his last 8 games, the Cowboys, Jaguars, and Chargers. But in the other 5 games, he rushed 74 times for 174 yards. That's 2.4 yards per carry. His success rate is under 19%. A run of 10 or more yards on less than 3% of those rushes. 27% of them didn't gain any yardage. And in the Week 16 matchup between these teams, he had 14 rushes for 57 yards. I mentioned the cold. Kansas City is one of the best teams against running backs, only 3.8 yards per carry to running backs, and a 65% success rate against those runs. I don't see Mixon being part of the game plan. He's banged up, and it's just going to be an issue for Houston to establish the run at all. Under 57 is my best prop for that game.
You know, Joe House, I think you bring up a good, astute observation with Mixon's game last week against the Chargers. Put up a lot of those yards at the end of the game in extended garbage time, and if you assume that the Houston Texans are going to be trailing in this one, can't imagine they're going to be running the ball much over the final couple minutes of the game. Okay, Raheem, I like where you're going with this player prop. You have identified a Houston Texan that might be involved in the passing game who is not named Nico Collins.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dalton Schultz, over 37.5 receiving yards. I really like this one because given the injuries to Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, the cupboard is pretty bare behind Nico Collins. And then they also just added another receiver on injured reserve this week, tight end Cave Stover. He's not going to be playing. So somebody has to catch the ball. I mean, it's not going to be one of us wise guys out there on the field catching the ball. So I think it's Dalton Schultz. And if you look at the Chiefs, they struggle to defend the tight end all season long. If you exclude week 18, a tight end has eclipsed the 40-yard mark in 12 out of 17 games. So let's go over on Dalton Schultz. That's 37.5 receiving yards.
I love the sound of this, and I think if you're putting together an SGP for this Chief-Texan game, take Dalton Schultz, 30-plus receiving yards. You're going to find your way to pay dirt. Okay, Sal. Raheem went with the tight end on the Houston Texans. You, sir, are going with Taylor Swift's boyfriend. How are you playing Taylor Swift's boyfriend?
What? I didn't hear this news. Oh, yeah, they are dating. Listen, JJ, I think you could have your cake and eat it, too, with the Texans plus the points and some Chiefs player props over. And by the way, I don't like olives on my cake. I don't know how you guys feel about that. We could talk about that during the break. But I'm going Kelsey, 25 or more receiving yards in both halves. Listen, playoff Kelsey is just a different beast from what we've seen this year. Last 4 playoff games last year, all over 70 yards. 2023, he had 3 playoff games, all over 78 receiving yards. The year before that, 3 playoff games, all over 95 yards. He spreads it out. I'm going to collect plus 260 or thereabouts on this little prop here. This isn't the Kelsey who JJ unsuccessfully bet to score a touchdown from weeks 12 to 16 or whatever. And by the way, JJ, I think you owe us a song or something, don't you? When's that coming?
I don't owe you a song. Maybe I'll give it to you in New Orleans when I'll get in the recording studio and, I'll try to figure out what's what. Those look delightful, House. Absolutely delightful. What I am going to do, though, Sal, is I am going to side with you once again with Travis Kelce. So you're going with receiving yards over in the first half and the second half. I'm just going to take 50-plus receiving yards for the game. And I'm going to give you a little info and some background and some history. You want to know the last time Travis Kelce in a playoff game was under 50-plus receiving yards? You got to go all the way back to the Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers. That was all the way back in 2020, pre-COVID, for goodness sake. So to me, you have a golden opportunity to take a guy that has great rapport, great chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, and revs up the engines and turns into a different guy once the calendar hits the month of January. Patrick Mahomes, with a situation in which he cannot count on his tackles to go and protect him, he's going to rely on reliable. Travis Kelce is reliable. We're getting 50-plus receiving yards at even money. Where do I sign? Travis Kelce will be over this total. And you're right, Sal. You can find yourself in a position where you take the Houston Texans plus the points, and you have some Kansas City player props. I get love from Raheem. Bad? I get love from House. So we love the idea that we're aligned with Travis Kelce.
Yeah, there you go. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
Do I need my sign too? That's right. The only thing that's missing is a John Jastremski signature, which I think I might add to this by the time the show comes to a close. Okay, we had our player props that were of the standard variety. Now, gentlemen, it's not an ice cream sundae, but it's a long shot ice cream Saturday for the Texan-Chief game. And the rules of this game are as follows. We got to give you a player prop or some sort of prop that's 200 plus or greater. It's got to fit that motif. It's got to fit that sort of theme. If not, it's going to be rejected. Raheem, I'll start with you on this. What is the liking of plus 200 or greater that you're bringing to the table?
Well, you saw the sign that said, I like your Travis Kelce wager. I'm going to take that a step further. I'm going to take Travis Kelce 70-plus receiving yards. That pays plus 235. And we know he had a mediocre regular season. He finished with a career low, 823 yards. However, in week 17, you saw what he did against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had 8 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown. So that means Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, they're ramping things up for the postseason. And like I said before, the postseason are when boys become men, and men, they play football. So we're going to go with Travis Kelce, 70-plus receiving yards. I think he hits this pretty easily.
I'm right there with you, Raheem. Okay, House, there's a theme that we've talked about a lot when we do these playoff shows, and it involves quarterbacks running a lot more. This is something that you think is valuable for one Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and there's no surprise that we've got a bunch of mobile quarterbacks amongst the teams that are left. Well, one of the very best at this is indeed Patrick Mahomes. His line for rushing yards is 24.5. I'm playing this up over 40 yards. That's plus 285 at the FanDuel Sportsbook. This is the time of the year when Patrick Mahomes starts using his legs more. Literally half of his 18 playoff games, he's gone over the 25 yards. And we've seen it against these very Texans, week 16, 33 yards and a touchdown. Houston's allowed over 8 yards per rush to quarterbacks this season. 7 quarterbacks have at least 30 yards on the ground against the Texans. The Chiefs' run game still kind of a work in progress, right? The Texans' pass rush coming up, creating havoc, and Mahomes with some unscheduled runs. Let's go get this 40 yards plus 285, boys.
I'll tell you what. I love it.
What do you mean by that? You're showing us both.
I know. I love it and hate it because I think he's going to get there, but you have to get to like 65 yards before you start counting the kneel downs. I kind of feel like the better way to do it is to bet carries, and then you get 3 freebies. I know you're not going to get plus 285 on carries, but maybe hedge a little on yourself. They should both hit if one of them hits there.
Well, hopefully you only get one kneel down and you go from there. Cousin Sal, we're getting nuts. First touchdown for the ice cream sundae? What are we thinking?
Well, we have a choice here. I know there's a lot of love for Kelce on this show so far, but I'm going Kelce or Nico Collins to score the first touchdown, plus 330. You know, there was a time, JJ, where you had to choose between one or the other, and you'd spend hours in the lab, and the wife or the husband would get mad, like, what are you doing? Now you don't have to choose. You could spend time with your loved one. I'm taking both Kelce or Collins, plus 330. I love that you could take 2 players here. I made the case for Kelce. He scored his team's first touchdown in 5 playoff games over the last 2 years, and Nico Collins scored in the last 2 games and 4 of the last 5. Pair them together, you got a real shot here, plus 330.
And if you go back last week, wildcard weekend, Nico Collins scored the first touchdown of that game against the Los Angeles Chargers, which really shifted the momentum. Chargers were in complete control. The Stroud, the weird snap, whatever you want to call it, hey, it ended up being a good thing for this panel because we were all over the Houston Texans. All right, guys, you know I love a good narrative. I'm going with a narrative play for the final leg of our Ice Cream Sunday. DeAndre Hopkins, you know what he spent a lot of time in his career? In Houston, playing with the Houston Texans. Might have even played Kansas City in a playoff game at some point in time. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. It doesn't matter. The point being is this. I think Patrick Mahomes will look to get DeAndre Hopkins a touchdown in this game, and he's a red zone threat. I don't think you're going to see DeAndre Hopkins be a guy that goes and gets 8 or 9 catches in this game. There's just too many mouths to feed with the Kansas City Chiefs. Can I see Old Reliable going and scoring a touchdown here? 100%. And I'm getting plus 310. Juicy for a guy that might have a Hall of Fame case when it's all said and done. We're in on DeAndre Hopkins. Anytime touchdown. Little over. 3-1. Okay. Raheem, our Ice Cream Sunday pays an outrageous amount. In case you're wondering, our producer Jack texted us if you want to go and bet this. Plus 22978. If you want to ride all four of us and take our plus money extravaganzas, go from there. Now, it's time for Raheem's models. Raheem, we love a good old-fashioned model, especially when we're walking around Las Vegas, setting the scene, setting the strip, setting the scene in the strip, screwing it up, it doesn't matter. The point being is Kansas City, from a model perspective, has not performed the way you would think a one-loss team has performed all year.
Yeah, when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, there's a thing called Pythagorean expectation. It's not like the Pythagorean theorem that you learned in high school, but it estimates a team's expected win percentage based on the amount of points scored and allowed. And the Chiefs have performed like a team who has won 10.2 games. So they were more likely to finish 10-7 than 15-2. But I mean, we all know when you have Andy Reid, when you have Patrick Mahomes, you can overperform expectations. Now, when I look at my model, I actually have the defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs ranked 6th behind the Detroit Lions, Baltimore Ravens, Buffalo Bills, Philadelphia Eagles, and surprisingly, the Green Bay Packers. And just to list some other postseason teams, I have the Texans as the 15th ranked team. I have the Rams ranked 10th with priors and 12th without priors. And then I have the Commanders ranked 13th with priors and 9th without priors. So that's where I have the playoff teams ranked, but I still have the Detroit Lions as the number 1 ranked team. That doesn't really include all of the injuries. So, I mean, you probably put Baltimore as the number 1 power ranked team according to the market, but that's where I have things.
You have all of that at your disposal, Raheem, yet you have no problem laying 8.5 with the Chiefs, and I know you will be on the Chiefs if indeed they advance, because I almost think they're the sort of team where you take a lot of the data and you take a lot of the metrics and try to cast it aside because you know of the coach, the quarterback, the pedigree, and everything that comes with it, correct?
Yes, it's just like the LeBron James Cleveland Cavaliers. And when I first started betting, it was around that era. And I found myself betting against LeBron, betting against the Cavs, and then them going out there and blowing out the 62-win Atlanta Hawks or blowing out the 59-win Toronto Raptors. And at some point, I had to say, you know what? I am not going to fade Hall of Fame players who are one of the best of all time in their craft.
Well, we'll see if you get the opportunity next week, maybe to ride or fade Mahomes, assuming they can go and beat the Houston Texans. We'll break down House's commies taking on the Lions. Big spread, monstrous spread. Can Washington make it a game? We got a lot more coming your way. It's the Ringer Sunday pregame on a Saturday right here on YouTube. We're coming right back.
Let's do Chiefs-Texans really quick. Chiefs minus 8.5 over the Texans. Andy Reid could have 29 playoff wins by mid-February. Mahomes could be 18-3 in the playoffs by mid-February. They're plus 350 for the Super Bowl, which seems high because I clearly think they're going to win this game. And now you basically have plus 350 for 2 games. The one that jumped out to me, though, this was in Dubundo's column about how KC has failed to cover every 7+ spread this season.
Yeah.
0-7. Even though they won all of those games, Sheil. So this looks like the classic, just put them in a tease parlay because this is just what they do. They win by 7, they win by 4, they win by 3. And yet, I like how the Chiefs look lately. This is the best version of them we've seen this year. Could this be a little bit of a breakout party for them? Where are you leaning?
Yeah, Dundo scared me with that one too in his column, but I feel the same way. I feel like the Chiefs have a lot of things going for them in this game. Like the way they want to play is get the ball out quickly, methodical drives downfield. And that's the way you want to play against a team that has a great pass rush with the Houston Texans. So this isn't going to be like a new thing for them where they got to play left-handed or whatever. That's how they want to play. And to your point, that's how they were playing down the stretch of the season, where it was just long, methodical drives. The ball's not hitting the ground. Mahomes short completions go down the field. So I like them offensively there. And then defensively, CJ Stroud is 29th against the blitz this year. When you look at all the efficiency numbers, I like to look at Chiefs blitz at the 5th highest rate in the NFL. So I'm with you. I didn't watch that Texans game last week. I wasn't like, wow, I feel differently about their offense. This was the worst offense of any team that made the playoffs by DVOA. And so I think they're going to have issues offensively. I think there's a chance they could ugly up the game a little bit with their defense and their pass rush. But I like the Chiefs, but I think you're right. If it is a slow game, maybe bump the Chiefs down and do a teaser.
Welcome back to the Ringer Sunday pregame on a Saturday, getting you ready for the divisional round. Cousin Sal, Joe House, Raheem Palmer. You can always interact with the show via YouTube. Leave us a comment, a question, a concern, praise, criticism. We take it all. You have a free forum. Do as such. All right, let's get a couple of these YouTube comments. I have a bunch. House, you went through this with Billy Boy as far as the playoff manifesto is concerned. Andre wants to remind everyone, never take a team if you don't think they will win. You know, House, it's interesting. That's a part of the manifesto. But when you have these monstrous lines, I think it's okay to differentiate, hey, a team not being able to go and win the game and a team yucking it up, making it ugly, and covering a line that's over a touchdown, that's over 10.5. You know, I think we reach this sort of gray area with teams where it can't just be as cut and dry with that. I think if it's under a touchdown, you got to be able to make that argument. I think when you're getting over a touchdown, hey, these are monstrous numbers.
Well, the math agrees with you. For all the favorites, like you said, we're on an 18-game streak here where the favorites in this division round of a touchdown or more have won outright. The last time, in fact, that there was a loss was Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, who lost to Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans. How about that kind of circle back in the Wayback Machine? But yeah, I think with these lines, with this situation, you'll see some of these division favorites, especially the number 1 seeds, coming off of buys, slightly inflated, and I think there's some opportunity to grab some dog action here.
I feel a little
Raheem
yucky, though. JJ, no, I have to be honest. You and I taking the Texans, we both think the Chiefs. So I felt a little yucky doing it. I don't think either of us do that much, right? Because you should feel confident in a team to win if they're going to stay within a score or two. But anyway, so be it.
But you know what, though, Sal? In our defense, I think it's entirely different with the Chiefs, considering they have given us now a background of the last couple of years of being a team that when they're a monstrous favorite, they find a way, but they don't cover a lot of these games.
It's a lot. They don't care. They don't seem to care to cover. So what are we going to do?
Raheem, I wanted to hit you on this. The divisional round over the last, 8 to 10 years, we've seen a lot of these teams as favorites find a way to win that get the bye, but the team that comes off the bye, not necessarily as good covering the number, correct?
I wish I had the numbers, but I mean, from what I remember, a lot of these teams tend to cover the spread from the last couple of years.
Well, if you go back to last year, we had 2 1 seeds. Baltimore took down the Houston Texans, covered the number with ease. San Francisco did not cover the number with ease, and San Francisco, quite frankly, should have lost that game to Green Bay if it wasn't for a field goal kicker and Jordan Love throwing a late interception. But I kind of feel like over the last 8 to 10 years, now I don't have the number to back this up, but it is common knowledge. You want to do so. You want to fact check me like we're in a presidential debate. Feel free to do so. These 1 seeds win. Many cases, they don't cover. All right, guys.
I just looked it up, JJ. 63-1 against the number. You're right. You actually are right.
Oh, thank you. It's like we're watching partisan,
Who cares?
Partisan YouTube and
right.
FanDuel TV digital streams just to make sure the host looks good. I like the sound of that. All right, we go from the Texans and the Chiefs. Gentlemen, it's time to wisen up for a game that's near and dear to our buddy Joe House's heart. It's the C words and the Lions. Let's do it. All right, Joe House, I'm saving the best for last. I'm going to let you go last on this game because I know you got to bottle up some more energy. You got to bottle up some more thoughts. I know you're just jumping and rip-roaring and ready to go. Raheem, I'll give you the leadoff spot here. You're looking to play this game a little differently. You're not necessarily playing a side, but you're feeling some points in Motown.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions team total over 33.5. I know that's a really, really high number, but my model makes this game 36. So I think this is short. You're looking at the Detroit Lions. They've scored points on 51% of their offensive possessions in the regular season, and they've scored touchdowns on 38% of their drives this season. Meanwhile, you have the Commanders giving up touchdowns on 30% of their drives. So you look at the Lions, first in offensive success rate, third in EPA per play, and they're taking on the Washington Commanders defense, which is 22nd in EPA per play allowed, despite facing the easiest regular season schedule amongst playoff teams. And they're also 23rd in DVOA and 26th against the run. The Detroit Lions are going to be able to get whatever they want, running the ball, passing the ball, and I like this wager as opposed to laying the points because I get to isolate the offense. We know the Detroit Lions, they have a ton of guys on injured reserve. I think they had 21 guys on injured reserve. So I don't want to have to worry about that defense. I just want them to go out there and score points, and we know Dan Campbell will put the pressure on. So give me team total over 33.5.
Feeling points from an explosive offense that has been money at home all season long. I like it, Raheem. Sal, you're playing this pretty conventionally. You got two teams. You're taking a side. Who you rolling with?
I like Raheem's too. I'm sorry. I was a little late with the posted board here, though. But no, over 33.5 is a good way to play. You don't have to worry about a backdoor cover. You get the points for a defensive touchdown, all that, all good. But I am going against Washington. I am very, very sorry, Joe House. I picked Washington last week. Thank God they showed up so that we had one competitive game out of the 6. But I think this round is a different monster. We saw what happened with the rookie C.J. Stroud last year. Looked great against Cleveland, then went to Baltimore. J.J., like you said, he got trounced. They got beat up bad. So I'm going to take Detroit laying the big number. And I really like, out of anything, I like what I saw out of them week 18. Now, we might say Sam Darnold's a fraud, but they really crushed him, and they played defense. And they have Alex Anzalone back. That's a big return in the middle right there. And they have the better coach in Dan Campbell, 10-0, straight up as favorites in primetime. And over that, he's won by a margin of 10 points per game. 13-4, by the way, against the spread with extra time. Goff's going to use all his weapons. David Montgomery's back. That's not bad. Sorry, House. I see it as 38-20 final. I know. The Lions move on. You got 7 more hours to get drunk. Have a good time.
House, we'll save your thoughts momentarily. You're not going to like to hear this, although maybe you are going to like to hear this, because no team in the NFC has given me more grief, has given me more agita from a betting perspective than the Washington Commanders. I feel like I've bet against them way too often. It has not gone particularly well. I had a great wildcard weekend. The only game we got wrong, ATS, was Washington and Tampa Bay. Well, I'm going to get my vengeance here in this game. Sal hit on it. Detroit at home is an absolute wagon. I am getting that Detroit offense, the well-oiled machine, Ben Johnson auditioning for his next job, getting David Montgomery back, having Gibbs, having St. Brown, having Williams, having Laporta. I could go on and on and on against a Washington team that to me is not equipped defensively to go and slow them down in any way. And I know Jaden Daniels has been awesome. And I know Washington is riding this magic carpet ride. They are the Cinderella. Yeah, they played ball control against Tampa Bay. They're not going to have the same success. And I'm sorry, Joe House, the clock is about to strike midnight on your Commanders. Sorry, buddy boy. I'm laying 9.5, but this should be music to your ears because, hey, I've picked against your boys all year. I got to do it one more time. Now, we'll see if you're riding with us and you're going with the emotional hedge, or are you actually going to ride with your C words? House, the floor is yours.
Well, look, boys, all season long, I have been tried to carefully skeptical of the Washington fortunes in this miraculous bounce back season, the season that no movie director would accept as a script. And I have a ton of respect for Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, but this line is disrespectful. In the first place, Detroit went 6-2 against teams that made the playoffs, but only 2 of those wins were by 7 or more points. The other 6 games, all close. Washington has not lost by more than 8 points since the season opener against Tampa, the first game in Jaden Daniels' career. In fact, 13 of 18 of the C-Words game this season finished within one score, including 4 of their 5 losses. But really, this to me is, again, respectfully recognizing that the Detroit offense is great and definitely better than the Washington offense. But where are we coming in with this Detroit defense? The worst defense by every metric conceivable from week 13 on. And yes, they did have an outstanding game plan and performance against the Pumpkin Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings in week 18. And they clinched that number 1 seed and clinched the bye. But the Washington defense over that same time period, far superior to the Detroit defense. I'm fine with the idea of Detroit winning this game outright. They have demonstrated throughout the season that they are a class above in terms of their offensive execution. But where we are right now, 9.5 points is too much. I won't stand for it. You've got to put some respect on that man's name. Put some respect on that man's name.
Wow, standing ovation from the crew, I guess. Who is that?
To House's point, and, JJ made this point earlier. I just looked this up from Evan Abrams of the Action Network. Since 2003, home teams in the divisional round coming off a bye are 33 and 42. That's 44% against the spread, and including 3 and 5 since 2020. And as a 7-point favorite coming off a bye, they're 17, 24, and 1, 42%. So
look
JJ,
at you, Raheem, getting this information, making your host look good. I knew I saw it somewhere. Listen, that's why I got you guys to fact check me and make me look good every now and again. You got me, bro. I appreciate that.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, to House's point, that trend works out well for his Washington Commanders this week.
But how many rookies have made it to the championship game? 3? I mean, Dieter, Brock,
I can tell you, Ben Roethlisberger, Mark Sanchez, and I think Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy definitely did.
And Flacco was, too. Roethlisberger was a rookie?
So you got 4 right there. Roethlisberger, Flacco, Sanchez, Purdy.
A lot of years in football for only 4 to make it, but all right.
Joe House, I want you, though. You're taking the Commanders plus the 9.5.
9.5.
What is the?
That's all.
Okay. I want you, though, to give me the inspiration for how Washington could shock the world and win this game. What's the blueprint for that? It
would look very similar to the way that they beat Tampa, which is going for it on 4th down, converting a ton of 3rd downs. They were better than 50% in their 3rd down conversion. And then they had 5 4th downs. They went for it 5 times. They converted 3 of those. They have to possess the ball. They cannot put their defense out there and let this super efficient Lions offense get cooking, because you have to shrink the game from Washington's perspective. An underdog has to go for it every time. This is part of the excitement for this game. Dan Campbell and Dan Quinn, 2 of the most aggressive coaches in the NFL, going for it. I'm very, very excited for it, but Washington can, with Jaden Daniels, create some unscheduled runs, take advantage of some of what Detroit is bringing in terms of pressure, and they have extended drives. That's your pathway to success for Washington.
And that's my kind of coaching right there. I think it's about feel more than anything else. This is a feel game where if you're Dan Quinn and you're in 4th and 2 and 4th and 3, I'm sorry, 3 and punting the football is not going to beat you and not going to get you past the Detroit Lions. You got to be aggressive. You got to go for it. He did last week. It worked out well for him. He got vindicated on that 4th down. They finally broke through and scored a touchdown. He's going to have to do that for Washington to have a chance in this game. All right. We gave out our picks. A little dissension for both of these games. I like that. That's good. That means the guys are very much feeling the creative, competitive juices flowing as playoff time is upon us. Austin Gayle, our buddy from The Ringer, one of the, I think it's Paper Chasers. I might screw up the pod name. If I did, I apologize, Austin. But I know you have a guest pick for us, and it's going to be outstanding. What would it be?
What up, Ringer Wise guys? Austin Gayle here from Paper Chasers House. I just want to be you for a day. I want to be a Washington Commanders fan for a day. And even though I can't find value at the plus 9.5, there is a good chance the Lions roll on this one. I'm going to tease that out. I'm going to buy myself some safety. I'm going to get this out 6 points plus 14.5. I'm going to parlay that same game parlay on FanDuel. Jaden Daniels, 50 plus rushing yards. FanDuel's giving me that at plus 110. That's plus cheddar for you, Joe House. Why do I like it? Same reason every square likes it. Washington's converting on 4th downs 87% of the time. That's more than 15% better than the Eagles in the peak of the tush-push era. Jaden Daniels is a cheat code. Those legs are a cheat code. They're going to cover this by 2 scores. House, tell me why we're not throwing up the W on this bet.
House, I'll let you jump in. We love it.
I mean,
Of course you
anytime
do.
we're talking about plus cheddar, you know that I'm all in. Yeah, the fun thing with Jaden Daniels, Detroit's has a defense that blitzes and plays man coverage, and it creates a lot of. If he can find that pocket, then I think the rushing number could be closer to something like in the 70s or 80s for Jaden Daniels. And that is, look, the recipe is no turnovers and no punts. That's what we did against Tampa, and let Jaden run, baby. Let's go, Austin Gayle. I love your plus cheddar.
Can I just say before we get to our prop picks there, and Raheem, I'll address you specifically. We've talked now a few of us about how these teams are just going to go for it. Both these guys, these nutcases named Dan, are going to go for it. Should we betting the kicking props under as a result, or is that factor baked into the idea? I mean, you could get under a half a punt in this game at 20-1. It might be worth considering, no?
Yeah, I think I saw a prop under, what is it, under 6.5 punts. And I think, it might be 5.5 now. Yeah. I think you're not going to see very many punts in this game. So that's probably how I would approach it. I don't necessarily want to go with the kicker points because, if you get a sack here and there, you're probably not going to go for it. It's tough to navigate something like that.
All right, we're staying away from the kicker props. After digging a kicker last week, got off to such a good start and didn't cash that over for me. I'm feeling a little PTSD from that. All right, guys, we go from our wisest wagers on Washington and Detroit. Now it's time for a conventional player prop. And House, I'm going to give you the leadoff spot here. You had a bat last as far as the wisest wager. Now I'm flipping the batting order. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm nothing if not a rational bettor. I mean, I understand even with my side, my 9.5 points with Washington, there are pathways for Detroit to move the football. One of those is Jamison Williams. We're just going to play him over 3.5 catches. It's a super low line. He's coming into the playoffs, having cleared this in 7 of his last 8 games, with 6 of those coming in at 5 or more touchdowns. His average depth of target is shrinking. He's got an expanded route tree. I mean, I just think that against this Washington secondary, Williams is going to be a guy that's going to get that number of targets, and getting to 4 catches, he may be there by halftime, fellas.
All right, so you're in on Jamison Williams. Raheem, you're looking at a receiver on the Washington Commanders that you think is poised for a big day.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin. Over 68.5 receiving yards. You look at last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He hauled in 7 receptions for 89 yards, and he had 10 targets in that game. That was twice as many as any Washington receiver. So I think he's going to have a big day today against this Detroit Lions defense. We've spoken at length about how poorly they've been playing outside of the game in which Sam Darnold turned into a pumpkin. And if you look at the Detroit Lions, they play what? This is a team that plays. They play a lot of man coverage. So when Terry McLaurin is playing against zone coverage, he has a 19% target rate. Against man coverage, that surges to about 24-25%. So I think he should thrive against the Detroit Lions defense, which plays heavy man coverage. So I think he goes over here.
Gents, I know it's going to sound crazy playing an under in this particular game with a player prop or anything for that matter, just because I think we're all assuming there are going to be a boatload of points. But I'm looking at De'Ami Brown, who had a monstrous game and was instrumental in Washington's win over Tampa Bay. But they're putting his receiver yardage prop at 33.5. The guy has only gone over his 33.5 3 times this year. To me, this is the classic prisoner of the moment. He had a monstrous wildcard weekend game. Let's take him again in the divisional round. And I think you'll look to see Jaden Daniels move the ball in a different sort of way. Remember, Detroit's secondary, despite all of the injuries, is still going to outperform what we saw with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week. I think he goes under. I think you see McLaurin involved. I think you see Ertz involved. I think you see those running backs involved. I'm going to take De'Ami Brown under 33.5 receiving yards and hold my nose and hope he doesn't have a 25-yard completion in the first minute or two, with his bet basically goes right down the drain. So going a little contrarian here with a player prop from an under perspective. And usually, Sal, that works wonders. House, of course, you're not going to like it. It's anti-Washington. What else is new? Sal, what do you have for us?
No, I think you're right, JJ. So many of these totals are so bloated. It's probably smart to take the under, but I'm going to need a guy like De'Ami Brown to do well, I think, for mine to hit. And that's Goff and Daniels to combine for 600-plus passing yards. I get plus 270 on this. Could be a fun, light-it-up type game. Everyone go long. See what happens. Goff, we know, can hold his own in the passing game, 280 plus in 4 of his last 5. He had a 412-yard game against the Jaguars. We know what Jaden Daniels can do. He may have to throw a lot out of necessity, a few yards short of 300 against the Bucs. And House brought it up with the Lions defense. It's a little bit, we don't know what we're getting with it. They've allowed a 300-plus passer in 3 of the last 4 opponents. Guys named Caleb Williams, guys named Brock Purdy have put up 300-plus. So we can get to 600, collect plus 270. Could be a fun fourth quarter if it's close.
I like the sound of that. Now, boys, we transition from our player props. It's time for the Saturday of the divisional round. Get in the kitchen. It's our first of 2 family meals. Now, to start it off, Joe House, I swore to everybody a moment ago, I'm done with kicker props for the time being. I'm just, I'm over them. I'm done with them. It rubs me the wrong way. You, sir, see an opportunity with a kicker prop, and the more and more I think about it, the more and more I like it. So make the case.
Yeah, it's the time of season where, teams, especially on defense, will get into bend, don't break mode. And so I think, the opportunity is there. But we're looking at Harrison Butker over 8.5 total kicking points. That's a lot of kicking points. I mean, a lot of time that line is 6.5. But what I'm really looking at is the Chiefs getting to 27 points, which has been a big benchmark for division round success. Home teams that get to 27 points are 43-5 straight up and 35-13 against the spread. Now, I don't think the Chiefs are saying, let's get to 27 because we'll win. They're going to get there because they're going to, I think, kick some field goals in the first half, and then in the second half get the touchdowns that they need to go ahead and put some space between themselves and the Texans. But this is 3 field goals or 2 field goals and 3 touchdown point afters. I'm fine with it. I love the idea of Butker at home, this Chiefs team especially. Probably field goals in the first half, touchdowns in the second half, over 8.5. And it's very close to even odds. That's also attractive.
Sal, a week ago, I gave out Sam Darnold to throw an interception.
Yeah.
Thing of beauty. You are looking at a quarterback to throw an interception. Let's see if we can make it 2 for 2 as far as these go. What do we got?
All right, listen, I feel bad I'm piling on here against Washington, and I feel especially against Jaden Daniels. The guy's about to make me a lot of money. I picked him to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I might even get him a Gold Belly gift card to thank him for that. But I am going to throw a few bucks on him for him to throw an interception. You have to pay minus 148. This is the Sloppy Joe turnover, which I didn't even know was a thing, but there are Sloppy Joe turnovers over that. He's not an interception guy. Only had 9 on the year, but if he's throwing 35 times like he did last week against the Lions defense, in desperation, maybe trying to comeback mode, I don't know. He's going to have to be very lucky that one of those 3 or 4 dozen passes doesn't end up in the hands of a Lions defender. 16 picks for Detroit, tied for 4th in the NFL. They're going to grab one. Sorry about the big vig here. Minus 148. Daniels to throw an interception.
Don't apologize about the big vig. We got to hit one of these. So whatever it takes, if it means we got to start going with a couple more juiced up favorites to get a winner, fine by me. Raheem, you're going with a team that the wise guys are all over come playoff time. Quarterbacks running the ball more than they do in the regular season. You're looking at Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at Patrick Mahomes, over 24.5 receiving yards. I think House played the adjusted total earlier on. I like the regular total because, those kneel downs are, pretty tough. But if you look at Patrick Mahomes throughout his postseason career, or rather his regular season career, he's averaging about 3.5 carries a game, 20 yards. If you go to his postseason career, he's averaging 5 carries a game, around 30 yards. So if he's averaging 30 yards, you're getting 24.5. I know he's going to use his legs in this contest. Let's go Patrick Mahomes, over 24.5 rushing yards. This is in the form of KC style barbecue ribs. Let's lick our fingers because we're going to be eating good today.
That sounds absolutely delightful. I'm drooling over the lobster or the crab legs. I'm drooling over the barbecue ribs. Now, as a native New Yorker, I got a major problem with Detroit-style pizza. I mean, it cannot even sniff and compare to the elite stuff that I'm eating, like Lee's Tavern and Joe and Pat's and John's and Bleecker and L&B, and on and on we go. But listen, I'm a spoiled, entitled New York food eater, so that's the way it goes. That said, I am eyeing something from Motown, and I guess it has to be Detroit-style pizza. Jahmyr Gibbs, over longest rush at 18.5. This guy is a home run hitter. He's done this in 4 of the last 5 games, and we saw Bucky Irving have success against that Washington defense. Jahmyr Gibbs, all it takes is 1 rush, 20-plus yards. I love it. I'm going to lay the minus 132 and incorporate that as the final leg here of our family meal. Let's take a look at what the family meal is for this Saturday divisional round. I'm rolling over longest rush for Jahmyr Gibbs at 18.5. Raheem is rolling with the Patrick Mahomes over 24.5 rushing yards. Daniel's thrown interception. Butker over 8.5 kicking points. A little under 10-1 for our family meal. All right, guys, let's do some anytime touchdowns for this Saturday of divisional round action. House, you're not going to your game. You're going to Kansas City and Houston. Who's the anytime?
Yeah, we have a lot of anytime touchdowns in this Kansas City game. I'm looking at Xavier Worthy, who sat out week 18, but before that, in the run-up to the end of the season, when the Chiefs really got their offense going a little bit, 11 targets, 9 targets over those 3 games with a touchdown in each and every one of them. And one of those was a rush touchdown, which is absolutely the way that we will see Xavier Worthy put to good use. It's around plus 200. So let's go ahead. I mean, I think this is one of my favorite anytime touchdown bets of our playoff session so far.
So, Sal, we see a lot of people go the first touchdown variety. You mentioned it earlier in the show. It's very rare to hear about the last touchdown variety. You're getting involved in that market today.
Yeah, I might be getting a little cute here, JJ, but Terry McLaurin at 8-1. By the way, half the people in this country who play fantasy would ever say McLaren. It's wrong. It's McLaurin. I'm talking to my 11-year-old Harrison right now, who's in a bunch of fantasy leagues. McLaurin, last touchdown, 8-1. I have such a specific game script in my head, JJ, that I feel like Washington's going to be playing catch up and maybe a chance at a backdoor cover. And I think McLaurin is going to figure into this. And Raheem sang his praises. Guy's been great. Buckeye alum, 13 touchdowns. He scored in 6 of his last 7. And the final touchdown in each of the last 2 games against Tampa Bay and Dallas. I really like this at 8-1. Not an anytime touchdown, and with almost no time touchdown, let's call it.
You know, as a lover of cars, I gotta salute your 11-year-old because he clearly has good taste. Because I think I like the McLaren better than the McLaurin.
That's what he's figuring out. Yep.
Fair enough. Okay, Raheem, you're going with a bet that was very profitable last week. If you took it, you're riding that well again. What's the anytime?
Yeah, I'm going with Nico Collins, anytime touchdown, plus 185. I know it's a low total in this Kansas City Chiefs game, and I know the Houston Texans offense is, they struggle, but I mean, look, somebody's got to catch the ball, and at some point in time, I think they're going to score at least 1 touchdown. Nico Collins had 7 receptions, 122 yards, and a touchdown last week against the Chargers. This guy is a home run threat, but he's also a big body, 6'4". He can catch, he's a good red zone threat. So let's go with Nico Collins, anytime touchdown.
All right, I'm going back to the well for a guy that's been good to me in the anytime touchdown variety, and that's Sam Laporta, who really came alive the last couple of weeks for the Detroit Lions. And we know one thing about Jared Goff. When in down the red zone, he likes relying on his blankie. Sam Laporta is blankie inside the 20. I think it a little under plus 150. Great value for Laporta to go and find pay dirt. Quickly, Sal, you got about 20 seconds. Did you get involved in any of these FanDuel weekly specials for this week or not?
I do like one. They had called this a triple crown. So the leader of the weekend in passing, rushing, and receiving. I mean, so you could do like Jared Goff. You could do Goff, Puka Nacua, and Saquon Barkley and get 50-1 for that threesome. I might do like 25 of these. Is that responsible gambling? I'm not sure it is.
Probably not. Not. But if you're feeling your oats and you are, riding the profits of your wise wagers throughout the course of the year, you know what I say, Cousin Sal? More power to you. We got a lot more coming your way in this Saturday Ringer Sunday pregame. We'll have Anthony Dundo. We got OMG bets, getting you ready for Texans, Chiefs, Lions, Commanders, all that and more with the wise guys. We're coming right back.
Why does everybody think this is going to be a shootout?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with House. House nailed it. Like an average NFL game, you get 11 possessions in a game. And so everything about this Commanders game plan has to be lean into the variance, like House was saying. If it's only 7 possessions and now Jared Goff has a pass deflected at the line of scrimmage that somebody comes down with,
fumbles,
yeah,
Laporta
it has a bigger
stripped.
impact. Exactly. And that's how the Commanders want to play. Methodical, long drives, run the football, complete passes at a very high rate. So they've got that in them. And then the same thing about the fourth down stuff. Like if they're in the red zone, if they're on the, past midfield, they need to be aggressive. A fake punt here and there. Like when you're an underdog of this magnitude, and you're facing an offense and such a mismatch with the Lions offense against your defense, I think that's how you have to play. So I would not go against Jaden Daniels in a big spot. I mean, I don't know that there's another quarterback in the NFC that you say, hey, if you take the Lions here -8.5 and it's whatever, a 3-point game, a 5-point game in the fourth quarter, and the Commanders have 4th and 6, like I want to be on the Jaden Daniels side on that because he's come through, over and over and over again. And there's a couple schematic things here. I mean, we know how the Lions play, man coverage, and they want to blitz. Jaden Daniels, very good against man coverage because he can use his legs, and he has killed the blitz this year. Like all those rookie quarterbacks you named, as you were reeling them off, I'm like, that guy had a great team. That guy had a great team. That guy, like Jaden Daniels doesn't have a great team. He's putting the team on his back. And so I took the Commanders with the points just when I pick every game. So I don't like being on the other side of that guy.
Also in a dome against a not that good defense, it doesn't seem like the crowd's going to bother him because it doesn't seem like anything bothers him. And the amazing thing is how much they fucking trust him, House. Like some of the things they were asking to do in the second half, it was like he's like 32 years old.
Welcome back to the Ringer Sunday pregame on a Saturday, getting you ready for the divisional round right here on YouTube. We welcome back the wise guys, Cousin Sal, Raheem Palmer, Joe House, and John Jastremski. Texans and Chiefs at 4:30 Eastern. Then we have the Washington Commanders taking on the Detroit Lions at 8 o'clock. And Joe House, I can't imagine what you will be like if we are doing a show tomorrow morning and the Washington Seawards are playing in the NFC title game. Am I going to have to send out an APB for your whereabouts? I'm a little nervous about this, House.
You're going to have to send out an APB for a replacement because there's an excellent chance that I will not be of sound mind and body if that comes to pass. No, I'm a professional. I'll be on here. I'll just have to send you guys my picks so you can read them aloud because I won't be able to speak.
I like the sound of that. That, to me, Sal, is like the only consolation for us not getting Detroit home if Washington's going to go win the game is the state and the overall vibe of what Joe House will be like. It almost might be worth losing our bets.
Sure. Yeah, and by the way, you don't have to speak anymore, House. We have these pretty nifty pictures. You could just hold them up for an hour and a half.
That's right.
Why not?
That's right. I guess we have to bring all of these signs to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. So can they make them again and send them, Sal, or are we going to have to bring them with us?
I'm heading to FedEx right after the show. Yeah,
I don't know if it's going to pass through TSA. All right, guys. If you want to leave us a YouTube comment, feel free to do so. Comment, concern, question, praise, criticism, all of the above. It's now time, gentlemen, for our OMG. I can't believe we are making this bet. And, Raheem, I want to give you some credit, sir, because last week your OMG bet was the Los Angeles Rams defense to go and score a touchdown. That ended up cashing at +600. So I want to make sure we give credit where credit is due when we hit a monstrous long shot like that. And, Raheem, guess what? When you hit a long shot, you get the T-box. So what are you leading us off with for our OMG divisional round Saturday action?
Yeah, so we hit +700 on the Rams defensive score last week. We're going to try to do it again. Now, I don't think this is necessarily going to happen, but I got to take my shot. We're going to go with the Commanders, -3.5 on the adjusted spread against the Detroit Lions. That pays +600. Now, here's my logic. This is a game that's going to be high variance, and a big part of who's going to win this game is going to be decided by who converts their fourth downs. Now, if you go back to some of these playoff games, you go back to the 2020 Baltimore Ravens. They played the Tennessee Titans. They crapped out on fourth down. They could not convert a fourth down. And if the Lions go out there and they have a game that's very similar to when they played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers early this year, where they couldn't convert on fourth down, they were 1 of 5 in the red zone, they could lose this game by double digits. So that's how much fourth down variance has an impact on this particular game with both teams going for fourth downs. And, Austin mentioned that the Washington Commanders, they've converted 87% of their fourth downs. If that happens and then the Lions don't convert theirs, they're going to win this game. So I'm going to lay the 3.5 with the Washington Commanders plus 600. It's worth a shot.
Feeling frisky. I know Joe House is salivating over the possibility of that maybe somehow, some way coming true. Joe House, OMG time. Floor is yours.
Yeah, this might look like an emotional hedge, but I actually think there's some value here in terms of the script. I'm taking the Lions team total in terms of rushing yards and playing it at 175 yards or more. That's plus 200 on the FanDuel Sportsbook right now. And that really, to me, is a reflection of the game script that the Lions will try and implement. And I think they're going to have some success. And you get to 175 with kind of a three-headed rush attack. Yes, of course, you expect Jahmyr Gibbs to get his. David Montgomery's going to be back. Maybe he'll get in the 40 to 50-yard range. But don't sleep on the idea of Jameson Williams on a jet sweep kind of thing for a 30-yard run. Like, they will do that. And they'll put the sun god back there, too. Ben Johnson gets in his bag, especially with the extra time off the bye. I think a lot of guys are going to get rushes. So 175 yards, to me, is a very attainable number for Detroit.
Now, the House, you should put $2,000 or $3,000 on that. I like that idea. I really do.
Boys, it's finally time for me to get on board with something on a positive spin and variety from the Washington Commanders. I'm looking at Zach Ertz, who knows a thing or two about playing playoff games from his time with Philadelphia Eagles. You look at the second half of the year, Zach Ertz ended up becoming a touchdown machine. Now, he did not score in wildcard weekend against the Buccaneers, but he scored in Week 18. He scored 2 in Week 17 against the Atlanta Falcons. And we talk about the quarterbacks relying on the blankie. The blankie in the red zone is your trusted tight end. So I'm going to take a shot here. Juicy price, juicy value. Give me Zach Ertz a little under 3-1 to go and get an anytime touchdown in this game. In blankie, we trust. So 3 OMG bets down, 1 to go. Sal, what's it going to be?
All right, it's gonna be rough listening to you talk about salads and blankies. I'm not sure what you think this is here, JJ. My God. Now, listen, my OMG, each team to run for a touchdown in both divisional weekend Saturday and Sunday. It's an OMG because I had this last week. I didn't even come close. I think I went 2 and 4 out of the 6, but I'm doing it again. I think this could happen. Mixon scored last week. We have Pacheco, we have Hunt, we have Montgomery, we have Gibbs, we have Robinson. Lots of great opportunities, plus 3 mobile quarterbacks. I like my chances. And it's only a Saturday bet, actually. So you could win today and just sit back and count your plus 800 money. I just need 4 rushing touchdowns from the 4 teams playing today.
Well, best of luck on that one. Now, Joe House, before we say goodbye, I got to know what's on the menu and what are we drinking? Give me, set the stage for what the house. All right, so you seriously eating crab legs today?
No, this is a right down the middle. We've got chicken wings, we've got pizza, we've got nachos. This is like you don't mess around. It's playoff time. You
don't want to mess with the menu this time of the year. I agree with that.
You go for the gusto, and there might be a little bit of a midnight snack as this game gets in and gets even more tense. I like to eat away a little bit of anxiety, so we could see a nice Italian hoagie that comes in, kind of the second half, just to calm the nerves a little bit. But it's going to be clear liquids all day long. I'm not messing around with beer when my team is at. I'll drink beer tomorrow. Today is about the spirits because I'm channeling the spirit of this dude right here into a W for my squad. Let's go.
Go get him,
Joe House. Best of luck. We will see you Sunday. Rain or shine, for better or worse. Good luck with your Washington Commanders. We'll have Anthony Dundo join us in a matter of moments. But a reminder that FanDuel has bettors covered. Wildcard weekend with a host of profit boost tokens to choose from, including the great double your winnings boost. Make sure you opt in on FanDuel so you can apply the different boosts to your favorite bets throughout the day. You got a profit boost to use on a 3-leg SGP or SGP plus a 30% profit boost token each day of action. Now, we say goodbye to Joe House. We welcome in Anthony Dundo, who joins us here for the divisional round. And Dundo, it's good to see you once again, good sir. How did Wildcard Weekend treat you?
Well, not great. I've been anti-Houston all year, and the Texans got me in round one. I stayed at the blackjack table a little too long, fading the Texans. But hey, we get to talk about them again this week, and I am feeling the pressure because I'm putting my stellar 3-3 wisest wager record on the line. Been the story of my season, just consistently mediocre. So time to turn it around. Divisional weekend. Here we go.
All right, buddy. So you mentioned that 3-3 record. We want to see positives. We want to see a winning record. So that puts a little extra oomph on this particular pick. What are we looking at for a wise wager for you for the Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs?
I'm going against the Houston offense, which showed some life. I like the Texans team total under 16.5. I think they're going to struggle to score and move the ball. First of all, they have one receiver who's any good against man coverage, and it's Nico Collins. And I kind of think that Spagnuolo using McDuffie and some bracketed coverage, if you take him away, they don't have a single receiver that's above average against man this season. So that's a problem. So I'm going team total under 16.5. They can't really run the ball. Stroud's numbers against the blitz haven't been great. They're outdoors in colder weather. So I think all of this points toward the Chiefs having those long kind of smothering second half drives and kind of suffocating this Houston offense that's been really inconsistent all year.
Okay, so you're feeling a team total for the Texans under 16.5. Anthony, does that correlate necessarily with a game under, or are you not going to mess around with that because you don't want to deal with Kansas City and what they could do offensively?
I really don't want to bet against Mahomes in this environment. I think it's interesting. The Chiefs had 2 of their 3 most efficient offensive games in the final 2 weeks right before the playoffs. They started to get a little healthier. Pacheco came back. We saw Hollywood Brown. We saw DeAndre Hopkins kind of get more into that, integrated in the offense. Xavier Worthy took a real step forward. So all the pieces now are kind of coming together. The biggest question is really their tackle situation. And Mahomes is just so good at getting the ball out fast that I think it's a good way to negate Houston's biggest edge defensively. So, the Chiefs could have a second half where they really want to make a statement and they want to go and put up points, or they could have one of those classic Chiefs second halves where it's like a 7-minute field goal drive and then they only end up with like 27 points, which is kind of what I think could happen here.
Okay, we play playoff style, a wise wager, and a player prop that we got to hone in on. You are also looking at a player prop from a Houston perspective. It's a little different. I like what you're doing here. What's the player prop we like?
So there's this narrative that's kind of developed about Houston, and a lot of people have been very critical of the offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, that they're too run heavy. They run the ball early downs. And that was true for a lot of last season and a good portion of this season, but they've really unleashed their passing game early in games, early in the script. In the last couple of weeks, especially, the last couple of weeks of the regular season in Kansas City in the first meeting, and then last week against the Chargers, they were going much more pass heavy to the point where over the course of the whole season, they actually now pass at a higher rate than average on first and second down. Combine that with the fact that I think they're going to be trailing. Joe Mixon barely practiced this week, so he's not 100%. I don't think their line can really block. So I think that all kind of correlates to Stroud over 34.5 attempts. I think they're going to have to drop him back a lot in this game. And I think they're going to have long, methodical drives to make this happen because I don't think the Chiefs are going to give up a ton of big plays.
Boy, this is a tough needle to thread, the Dundo, huh? I mean, you would think if a quarterback throws 35, 40 times, his team is going to go over 16.5 points. In fact, Raheem has those numbers right there. How many times? What's the record of quarterbacks who've gone it? Oh, whatever. I'm making it up. But don't you think that it might be tough to hit that, right? Both?
Not if they're inefficient.
Oh, he's just not going to complete any pass.
Right. I think they're going to struggle to hit explosives.
That's the key, Sal, not completions.
Not completions.
Yeah, I got you. I get it. I get it.
And I think you could see a world, and I think we've seen this time and time again with the Chiefs, where maybe Houston has drives in the second half, but they're struggling in the red zone because they can't run the ball, and thus they're having to go for it on fourth down. They get stopped. Like those kind of drives, I think we're going to see a couple of those in the second half.
I get killed. JJ and I have the Texans, so we probably don't endorse this under 16.5.
There we go. I wanted you to reference that. Get that graphic up one more time. I want the Dundo to see where we are aligned from a wise wager and a prop standpoint. Sal, you hit at it. You and I are riding with the Texans. Raheem is laying the wood with the Kansas City Chiefs. Dundo, I know you did not give a side in this particular game, and I know you're a little skittish fading Patrick Mahomes in a playoff spot, better offensively the last 2 weeks. This Chief team, you know this, Dundo, when they're a 7-point favorite or greater, they don't cover these numbers, dude.
Yeah, I wrote about it in my column, which is up at the Ringer now. I mean, they've been favored by 6 or more 7 times. They have not covered any of those games, despite winning all of those games straight up. So that's certainly something that has me a little skittish about backing them. The other thing is just the market adjustment. I mean, these two teams played December, right before Christmas. The Chiefs were 3.5, 4-point favorites. You throw in a point or two for the bye. Tank Dell is missing, sure, but now it's 8.5, 9 even some books. So there's been a clear adjustment. I was very happy to lay Chiefs. One of my bigger bets of the year was Chiefs money line at home when they played the Texans. Now I'm like, man, this is a little higher than I'd like it to be. So that's why I kind of went with the derivative with the team total.
Can you quickly read your column? Read your column to us. No, I'm sorry. We have a lot of time.
Oh, you want the
kill.
column right? You want it word for word, verbatim, like it's
column,
Poetry Slam?
Yeah.
I hated Poetry Slam as a kid. You want to talk about a total waste of an hour and a half.
I can get into my dramatic voice. Yeah.
I could get dramatic if you need me to, but I'd rather go and perform on the stage than actually do Poetry Slam. Raheem, the rematches. We have that with Houston and Kansas City. We have that with Philly and Los Angeles on Sunday. We have it with Buffalo and Baltimore on Sunday. Just your gut feel. Do you put a lot of stock in what you saw the first time around with these two teams matching up, or is it like case-by-case basis where you say, wow, Buffalo and Baltimore played in week 4, totally different teams. LA and Philly played in November, totally. Like, where do you stand on, hey, a playoff rematch, we're seeing it again? Do you put a lot of stock or not so much stock?
I put a lot of stock in it because teams who won the previous game are 42-24 straight up. That's 64%. And if you're looking against the spread, they're 35-29-2 against the spread as well. So I think you have to put a lot of stock in that first matchup. And then a lot of times when teams play 3 times because they're a divisional opponent, you know, a lot of people always, they like to throw around, oh, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. No, it's not. Typically, some teams just have your number. So, and I think with this matchup, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to prove that they have the Houston Texans number. And I do think the Texans are a worse team than what we saw from them in week 16. They don't have Tank Dell. And like you said, Anthony Dundo said, they don't have too many guys who can beat man coverage. And I think that's going to be an issue here.
I do think that's the stupidest thing. It's really hard to beat a team twice in a row. Really? Remember in high school when Wyandanch beat us in basketball by 37? There was no way we were going to take the rematch. It just wasn't happening. Sorry.
What school?
Wyandanch, Long Island, Eastern Long. Yeah, people will know.
If you know, you know, I guess.
I think that might, like, Sal doesn't realize that, like, we're millennials. So it's like that must have been like a pop culture
Wyandanch still exists. It has nothing to do with how old you are. I'm just naming a high school. No one.
What neighborhood in Long Island? Can I get a neighborhood?
Well, it's East Northport, Huntington area, Suffolk
there
County.
You go. All right, so it's out in Guam, basically out in Guam. Okay.
I wasn't expecting people to. All right, go ahead. That's
a New York.
I've heard of Northport. I know that.
I haven't heard of Northport as well. The high school, no offense to anybody watching in Northport, I don't know where it is. But then again, I don't expect you to know my high school either.
Right.
Let's transition from Texans and Chiefs to Washington and Detroit. Dundo, team total. This is what you're feeling for a wise wager. What's the team total this time around?
So I like Springford height. No, I'm kidding. I like the Commanders over 23.5 points. I don't know how Washington gets any stops in this game. And Raheem talked about it before I came on. The 4th down variance, like, we could roll the dice. We could play craps. We could hope that on 4th and 2 that Jared Goff trips, or that Dan Campbell calls a crazy play, or the running back fumbles or something crazy. But it feels like Detroit's going to be playing downhill offensively all game. Can Washington keep up? I think we've seen enough of the Detroit struggles against mobile quarterbacks for me to believe that Daniels can make things happen with his legs, continue to extend drives. And I know they're going to be aggressive in the red zone on 4th downs, use all 4 downs to get in. Whereas, last week we saw Minnesota really struggle in the red zone. The Commanders on paper haven't been elite in the red zone this year, but using that 4th down, I think, is the big key. And so 3 touchdowns and a field goal for me to get there. I think we will. Even if they don't cover, even if they don't win, I like the Commanders to score at least 24 points in this one.
And this is an outrageous total, Dundo, from a game perspective. So you're feeling Washington's going to be able to finish up a couple of these drives. Not necessarily a believer in the Detroit defense. For the game total, you think it goes over that 50-something number?
I cannot bet an over 55.5 with these two.
Me neither.
Teams. They're too
Right there with you.
methodical. They're too methodical, right? So like every drive could take 6 minutes. That's the scary
And we
part.
saw last week with the Tampa-Washington game. That was the blueprint. A lot of long drives, saw a 90-something yard drive, a couple of fourth downs that flame out. Then all of a sudden you're chasing, you don't find a way to hit that total. Okay, we go from your wise wager, feeling points for the Washington Commanders. What are we feeling from a player prop?
So it kind of ties into what I just said about mobile quarterbacks. I like Daniels over rush yards, 55.5. I know it's starting to get a little high now, but you just go back through the history. Justin Fields, 85. Justin Fields, 106. Josh Allen, 68. Richardson, 60 plus. All these guys have had a lot of success.
Are we getting to a point, though, Raheem, with these rushing props for the quarterbacks where the numbers are starting to get a little inflated? Like Jane Daniels is a perfect example. I mean, we're talking 55.5 yards to go and hit that over. We've been all over it, the Dundo. We've talked about it a lot doing these playoff shows over the last couple of years, that this is a trend you can back and you can ride. But are we reaching a point where we're jumping the shark a little bit, Raheem?
I do think we're reaching that point, but I think there's another way to play it as well. I think you can play rushing attempts over. I think Jaden Daniels is at 9.5 rushing attempts. I mean, he's had games this year where he has 13 attempts. So I think you just want to look for different ways to play it once it gets too high. But I think in the case of Jaden Daniels today, I do think he can hit this rushing prop. I think 55 is, it's pretty low considering this Lions defense. So I like it, but it is getting to the point where it's getting too far.
Yeah, I think these guys, everyone, they have to jack these up because no one's betting Jalen Hurts under rushing yards. No one's betting Jaden Daniels rushing yards under. No one's betting Josh Allen under. There's people racing to the window to bet over. So, unfortunately, it's bloated.
Tip to be square.
That's right.
Crew, do me a favor.
Love this guy.
Get that graphic up that we just had a moment ago. You guys are all over it. Best crew in the business. Wisest wager in the props. You see right there, Dundo. Sal and I riding together on the Texans. We are also riding together on the Lions. I just don't know how Washington is going to get any stops in this game. And Joe House has faded his Commanders all year. He's letting his heart maybe talk in this one. He's grabbing the 9.5. Based upon the fact that you're taking Washington over team total perspective, does that correlate with you being on the Commanders in this game?
If I had to bet a side, I would. I think I have the better quarterback. Right? So I'm catching 9.5 with the better quarterback. That's always tempting. Right? Just throw everything else out.
No, I totally get that. If you're making me take a quarterback in this game, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff, I'm taking Jaden Daniels. Just the overall arsenal of Detroit, though.
Yeah.
And Raheem's all over this from the over points perspective. They got a week off here. You got Johnson getting ready for his next gig. You got Glenn getting ready for his next gig. To me, this reeks of, hey, Cinderella, clock strikes midnight. Great year, Washington Commanders. You're going up in weight class in this game. Maybe Jaden Daniels proves me wrong, but that to me is my fear factor with Detroit just coming out, and they have been gangbusters in that building, the Bundle. They lay the smackdown against these teams.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw last year in the playoffs kind of sticks in my mind, though, where Detroit had their second playoff game against Tampa at home. People didn't really think they'd get 2 home games, but then Dallas lost. Sorry, Sal. But had to throw it in there. But
damn, you taking shots at all of us today.
Sal and Raheem. I was going to say that right side of the screen, the Bundo, is Cowboy City. They might be auditioning and going to Dallas for the next head coaching position. Sal, I know that's your next job.
Terrible. Give it to Harry. We're used to losing. Go ahead.
They got the second home game, and then people were like, "Oh, they're going to roll Tampa. Tampa can't play any defense." And Baker was good enough. That offense was good enough. There was a 1-score game late, and so I think that's kind of where this game plays out.
All right, let's transition here and hit a couple of the games on Sunday. Now, Dundo, full disclosure, Sal, Raheem, and myself are not going to give any picks away because we have a show to do tomorrow, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, YouTube, FanDuel TV, for all of you keeping score at home. But I think we should get some thoughts from you on the best way to maybe attack the 2 games on Sunday. So, Sal, Raheem, Sal, you first. What game do you have?
This has a little to do with the X's and O's of the game. The Bundle, you saw an Eagles fan harassing a visiting Packers fan last week. The guy got banned by Big Dom, which is ironic because Big Dom got banned last year, right? The internet did a number on this guy. He got fired from his job. Do you think Eagles fans have learned their lesson, have learned once and for all to behave themselves at these games? I do, for sure.
I will say, when I was 11 years old, I went with my cousin to a Colts-Eagles game at the Link, wore all my Colts gear, And there were some Eagles fans that had some choice words that I will not repeat on this show, but let's
Let's
say
hear it.
11-year-old Anthony was cursed out by many drunk Eagles fans. And then 4 years later, the family made a nice trip out to Indianapolis for Eagles Colts again. You know, family rivalry, head-to-head, Monday Night Football. And even in Indianapolis, some Eagles fans were cursing out 15-year-old Anthony in the seats. So it's very funny. I think Philly fans are just all the same as New York and Boston and Baltimore. They just get a weirder rap for it. I just think it's a Northeast thing. I really do.
Maybe.
There's a different sense of negativity, though, with the Philadelphia sports fan, Dundo. I've noticed that. It's a different
JJ, I've listened to
negativity.
your pods after Yankee games.
Well, listen, the Yankee fan has been bruised, battered, and beaten. I think it's more the behavior, though, within the stadium that could be a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's something to watch in this Eagle-Ram game. You know, you think about the home crowds, right? Buffalo, they're going to be hooting and hollering, super positive regardless. Kansas City, probably the same vibe because they just know nothing but success. I am very curious to see if adversity hits the Eagles, where the city likes the defense. The city loves Saquon Barkley. I don't know where the city stands, though, on the Jalen Hurts dynamic with A.J. Brown and the passing attack. They fall behind 7-0 in this game, Dundo. I think that's going to be a very tense crowd at the lake.
I agree. You're not allowed to criticize Jalen Hurts. They are. That's how it works. So if an outsider says something bad about Hurts, screw him. If they say it, though, it's okay. That's basically how it works. That's the rule.
And as far as that spread, Dundo, gut feel, 6.5, L.A., Philly, who are you taking?
The weather forecast is still very up in the air here. We could end up with like heavy snow for this game. And if you take away the Rams' perceived advantage, which is that they have Matt Stafford and Sean McVay and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and they can kind of just cook a little bit. If you take that away and this becomes just like a trenches run game battle, how does that not favor Philly? But if it's just light snow, if it's just like a mix, then it becomes a little more interesting.
Defender falling down all over the place. That to me, it's almost, Raheem, the wind is more important than the snow factor, because if you have wind, you can't throw the football. If you have snow, hey, I'm going Raheem. Raheem knows where he's going. I don't know where the hell I'm going as a defender. I think that could maybe, in a way, help Matthew Stafford in the offense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason, a lot of handicappers talk about snowverse, playing snow games over, because, you tend to see these offenses light things up. I mean, like I remember, I don't know if you guys remember this. If you go look it up, there was the Detroit Lions, Philadelphia Eagles game.
Tremendous game. I remember well.
So, it wasn't supposed to snow.
This was earlier on in my betting career, and I think the over-under was about 54.5. It closed at about 49, and I bet everything I could on that under. And I think the score was, 6-0 at halftime, and they put up 50-plus points in the second half. So, these snow games, you tend to see offensive explosions. But, as far as this game, you'll have to wait tomorrow to hear our picks. I was about to.
There you go. We don't want to spoil anything. Good boy, Raheem. We have a show to do tomorrow. The bundle could spoil.
One thing I will say is that New York and Boston doesn't have anything on Philly fans, because when they opened the link, there was an actual jail in the stadium.
Correct.
Yeah, so they don't have nothing on the Philly fans. But, one of the most interesting games this weekend is the Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills. We got two MVP candidates. Who do you think deserves MVP, and who do you think is going to win this game? Will Lamar Jackson, erase all his demons, or is that just who he is? Is he James Harden?
I will say I would have voted for Josh Allen, because I think we are now penalizing Allen and the Bills because they wrapped up their division in November, right? And then they just kind of coasted at the end of the season. And we're rewarding Lamar because he had more counting stats, because he had a couple big games at the end of the season against bad teams, Pittsburgh and Cleveland and the Giants. That they needed to play because they wanted to win the division. So we're giving Lamar the edge on that. I mean, I know they won head to head, but I mean, we saw Josh, and I think Josh has to do more to carry the Buffalo offense, because Baltimore has Derrick Henry. And I have heard everybody make the case for the Ravens, and I think it's a very simple case. It is Buffalo is light up front. Baltimore will run the ball. It'll be kind of a repeat of what we saw in week 4, week 5. But The Bills' 3 best run defenders did not play or got hurt early in that game. Milano, Johnson, Rapp went out injured. Terrell Bernard didn't play. Like that was a skeleton unit of Buffalo defenders. I think their run defense is going to hold up better than people think. And I think that they're not going to win the rushing yards battle, but it'll be close enough that when it comes down to it in the fourth quarter, it'll be close. And in that scenario, I trust Josh at home with his full complement of weapons than I do Lamar without Zay Flowers on the road. Because we can talk about running this, running that. If it's a close game late, we all know who it comes down to. And I still trust Josh more. So I like the Bills. I think they should be a small favorite.
The Dundo rolling with Buffalo over Baltimore. Be a rough winner for Lamar Jackson if he doesn't go and win that game. That's all I'm going to say. That's going to do it for this Saturday edition of the Ringer Sunday pregame. For Anthony Dundo, Raheem Palmer, Cousin Sal, and John Jastremski, enjoy all the football. We'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, FanDuel TV and on YouTube. Until then, be good, everybody.